Hi, I'm Kolarele, back with another video on communication skills, and my communicator of the week for this week is Sir Kier Starmer. So there is a lot going on in UK politics this week, and whilst I always emphasize that this is not a political channel, I do have my political views, but I'm really more of a communication skills guy. But sometimes you just have to deal with what is out there, and politics very often provides great material for communication, especially when you have a week like this, where the UK Prime Minister, or at least he's the Prime Minister at the time I'm recording this video, Boris Johnson, has just faced an onslaught of problems, largely of his own making, that mean he is really being seen as a liability to the Conservative Party, and he is prime material for attack by the Labour Party and specifically Sir Kier Starmer. Now this week I'm focusing on the performance of Sir Kier in Parliamentary Question Times PMQs, which is a weekly event where he and Boris Johnson basically go head to head and argue it out. So Prime Minister's Question Time, PMQs, is really kind of a bit of a cauldron. You've got your team behind you, he's got his team behind you, and if you have to argue the policies and the politics of the day. It's kind of a dog-eat-dog world, and it's really about finding who is the alpha male of the moment. Now, truth be told, most of the time, Boris Johnson pretty much comes out on top in PMQs, not because of any particular substance, but he's very good at the bluster and getting his team behind him, whereas Sir Kier is really much more of a bland, policy-focused kind of person, which is good in theory, but in practice, you also need to get your team behind you and passionate. So ordinarily, I don't think he does exceptionally well in these PMQs. But that changed this week when he squared off against Boris Johnson over some allegations that Boris Johnson had not sacked, or at least had promoted, a guy that was pretty much universally regarded as a sex pest or predator. Let's see how things start off.
Mr. Speaker, last week, a government minister was accused of sexually assaulting a young man. I want to quote the victim's account. He says, "He grabbed my arse and then he slowly moved his hand down in front of my groin. I froze." I accept that's not easy listening, but it's a reminder to all those propping up this Prime Minister just how serious the situation is. He knew the accused minister had previously committed predatory behaviour, but he promoted him to a position of power anyway. Why?
Prime Minister.
So look, the job of an opposition leader is both to hold the government to account, but more importantly than that, it's about showing that you are a leader in waiting. And this is something that I think all of us can learn from a communication point of view, which is how do you present yourself as somebody who is a potential leader when you're not actually in the role, at least in this case, the role of Prime Minister. So he's chosen to be very forensic, but also to start really strong with a stark question, a stark issue, talking about the detail of the sexual harassment allegations that kind of came to the fore this week. And it's really powerful, especially because he is taking away Boris Johnson's primary tool, which is his bluster, his bravado, his ability to kind of brush things off, knowing that if he tries to do that in this instance on such a serious issue, he's really not going to succeed. So he's kind of put Boris Johnson on the back foot. And as a result, Boris is just really not on his strong ground, as we see in his kind of pretty lame response.
Mr. Speaker, that individual, the member for Tamworth, no longer has the Conservative whip. He no longer has a job. He is no longer, as soon as I was made aware of the allegation that he has just read out, Mr. Speaker, and the complaint that was made, he lost his status as a Conservative MP. and he is now the subject, Mr. Speaker, of an independent investigation to the Complaints and Grievances panel. And that is entirely right. And I want to say to him, Mr. Speaker, I want to say to him that I abhor bullying and abuse of power anywhere in Parliament, in this party or in any other party.
Okay, those of you who know me will probably know that I'm not that much of a Boris fan, although on certain occasions he is actually a very effective communicator. This was not one of them. He kind of messes around and sprouts stuff that isn't really saying anything. You can tell from the kind of team behind him that they're not that much kind of animated because of what he's saying, because they can sense that he's not getting the better of it. And I think that is very much down to the brilliant choice of opening question of Sir Kier Starmer, putting his opponent on the back foot. Again, something that we can all learn from. Let's go on and watch what happens next.
Before he was found out, he's reported to have said he's handsy. That's the problem. Pincher by name, pincher by nature. Now, has the Prime Minister ever said words to that effect? And I'm not asking for bluster and half-truth. We've all had enough of that. Yes or no?
Prime Minister.
So again, we can see what Sir Kier is doing here. He knows that Boris's strength is the bluster, and he specifically calls him out and says, answer this question. I don't want any bluster, so that Boris can't really do the thing that he really wants to be able to do. It's another really, really clever approach. And also the fact that he asks him a simple question, did you ever say that this person is Pincher by name, Pincher by nature? That's the name of the MP who's accused of being a sex predator. By asking that really simple question, focused and saying, that is all I want to know, yes or no, it means that when Boris then doesn't answer the question, which of course he doesn't, everybody notices the fact that he hasn't answered the question, because Sir Kier kept his question very narrowly focused. Really, really clever stuff, probably as a result of Sir Kier's experience as a lawyer, prosecutor, asking people questions and cross-examining, but it really, really worked well in this instance. Let's see a little bit of what Boris says in response.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to trivialise what happened. Yes, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Mr. Speaker. And I'm not, because the very serious complaints have been raised against the member for Tamworth, and they're now being investigated.
Yeah, basically he couldn't say much because, again, Kier had really kind of cornered him so that he couldn't go to his own strengths. Really effective communication on Sir Kier's part. And now that he knows that he has Boris on the ropes, he presses his advantage. And that is what he should be doing as a leader of the opposition, trying to signal to the country that I am the alpha male in this case. So let's see what he goes to next.
It was the same when his ally was on the take from the lobbyists. It was the same when his Home Secretary was bullying staff. It was the same when taxpayers' money was being abused. And it was the same when he and his mates parted their way through lockdown. Anyone quitting now, after defending all that, hasn't got a shred of integrity. Mr. Speaker, isn't this the first recorded case of the sinking ships fleeing the rat?
So there are a couple of really good things that Kier does in this clip, but before I focus on those, I want to raise something that actually just I don't like about him, which is that he's reading from a script. It's fine to have notes, right? Everyone's going to have notes. But if you're trying to show that you are totally in command, you are the authority, you are the one in control of this moment, you've got to move away from having scripted comments. Even with the final comment he had about sinking ships, leaving a rat, which is actually a really good line. It's a reversal of the idea of rats leaving a sinking ship. He read that out, and come on, Kier, you got to do better than that. And it's part of the overall problem I think he has, which is that when people think about him, they think competent guy, probably quite a bit of integrity, but totally bland. He has to step up beyond that and show some passion and spontaneity, the kind of stuff that Boris is really good at, even though for me he lacks a lot of the substance. So yes, it was a good clip, He started with a technique called anaphora, which is when you repeat a phrase, it was the same. And he lists some of the failings of Boris Johnson over the last year. So really good way of bringing everything he wants people to remember to this particular moment. So they just don't just focus on the moment, but they focus on everything that has led up to it. So really, really good. And the phrase like sinking ships, deserting a rat, actually really clever reversal of the normal phrase. So really good stuff there. I just wish he didn't have to read it.
And as for those who are left, only in office because no one else is prepared to debase themselves any longer, the charge of the lightweight brigade. Have some self-respect. Mr. Speaker, for a week, he's had them defending his decision to promote a sexual predator. Every day, the lines he's forced them to take have been untrue. First, that he was unaware of any allegation. Untrue. Then he was unaware of any specific allegation. Untrue. Then he was unaware of any serious specific allegation. And now he wants them to go out and say that he simply forgot that his whip was a sexual predator. Anyone with anything about them would be long gone from his front bench. In the middle of a crisis, doesn't the country deserve better than a Z-list cast of nodding dogs?
Well,
Okay, so let's put aside that he again read it out, which I really wish he wouldn't, and focus on what was really good about that. First of all, he told a joke. And believe me when I say that for Keir, that's actually quite a big deal because he's not known as a flamboyant, charismatic kind of guy. That's not his personal brand. I think he needs more of that, but it's generally not what he does. So where he actually tells a joke about the charge of the lightweight brigade, it actually gets everybody laughing, even people on the opposite side, the front bench sitting next to Boris Johnson. Now, the joke is kind of a play on the charge of the light brigade, which is a moment in British military history when basically the British soldiers were torn apart by Russian artillery. So it's kind of good the way he brought in some of British history and made a joke about it. So really well done on that. But what was even better is that whilst people were laughing at that, he then took them to a more serious point, laying out all of the things that Boris had basically told lies about and saying he hadn't done this, he said this, it was untrue. He said that, it was untrue. He said this, it was untrue. And if you notice, there was a moment when he said this and then somebody behind him said that was untrue, even though Keir didn't actually complete the sentence himself. That is an indication that he was in complete control of his audience, leading them through the emotions that he wanted to lead them through. Really, really clever stuff. And then he ends with a really hard punch, calling the rest of the cabinet a bunch of nodding dogs. And that, I was surprised that the speaker didn't pick him up on that, because there's kind of etiquette rules on what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say. But the fact that he said it, the fact that he was willing to attack, the fact that he got away with it, the fact that Boris basically didn't have much to say in response, I'm not even going to show you what he said, for me just means that in this moment, at this time, Keir was a complete master. Well done, sir. Let's see a little bit more.
When I was prosecuting rapists, I heard that from victims all the time. Victims said they froze because it's not about sex, it's about power. And the power the disgraced government minister had was handed to him by that Prime Minister. And he's only in power because he's been propped up for months by a corrupted party defending the indefensible. So it's no longer a case about swapping the person at the top. Isn't it clear? The only way the country can get the fresh start it deserves is by getting rid of the lot of them.
Mr. Speaker, the difference between this...
So this was actually his final question. In PMQs, the leader of the opposition gets 6 questions. So his final question, he kind of has to bring it home and land the plane, as it were. And that's why he moved from, just accusing Boris and attacking him, moved towards kind of a call to arms for his team, saying, let's get rid of a lot of them and basically bring us in. It was really effective because, of course, as you saw at the end, his team was cheering and shouting, and they don't often do that for him. It was a moment that I think signified to his own party and probably the country, because this is probably one of the few PMQs that a lot more people actually watched, that he really is a person of character, of strength, of authority, the alpha male in the room, able to land the punches when they need to be landed, able to be humorous when it's needed, serious when it was called for, lighthearted when appropriate. All in all, a really, really strong performance, completely destroyed Boris Johnson, probably in part led to some of the problems that he immediately faced, where you could tell that everybody recognized that he wasn't going to escape with his usual bluster. That wasn't going to do it in this moment, especially with a strong opposite leader in Sir Kier Starmer. That is why Keir is my communicator of this week. As always, if you want to do more about your communication skills to be an even better communicator, reach out to me, check out the links. You'll see some of the stuff that I put out. I will see you on the next video.